Out of the Cave to Become Men, Journaling History by Doug Ferguson. Read by Doug Ferguson. Chapter 8.2.2. In the beginning, the narratives. Modern narrative. Theia Impact. There is so much we do not know, though I will continue with an accepted narrative of this planet Earth. Yet to continue the narrative, many primary assumptions are needed to be considered as true. Also, many assumptions cannot even be considered because they are still unknown. But by conjecture, scientists have theorized that even before the formation of the moon, proto-life was forming in the Earth's stewing atmosphere. This thick atmosphere, which kept the surface of the Earth in a netherworld of chaos and darkness, was then stripped by the formation of the moon, transforming into something that plants could develop in. Yea, some people call it the Big Splash now. Others call it the Giant Impact Hypothesis. But let us just call it the Impact, 'cause Theia is the mother of the moon goddess Selene. I'm just getting silly again. I couldn't help myself. It just sounded too much like Steve Miller's lyric for The Joker. I hope I didn't ruin the song for you. The Theia Impact suggests that the moon formed out of the debris left over from a collision between a slightly smaller Earth and an astronomical body the size of Mars, approximately 4.5 billion years ago, in the Hadean Eon, about 20 to 100 million years after the solar system first coalesced. Nobody said the procreating of the moon by two heavenly bodies wouldn't be messy. Could this be considered astronomical sex? Get a room. This impact of two orbiting colossuses, one Earth-size spinning quickly and the other the size of Mars, stripped much of the atmosphere off, leaving the sky clear of the sludgy chemical stew that was before. The sun could now shine through the transparent firmament to promote plant chlorophyll development. Another miracle of design magically, coincidentally occurred out of all the possible probabilities and improbabilities, setting this amazing dust ball we call the Earth on the course towards having life. During the Theia Impact, it seemed logical that when these planets collided, the two became molten from the impact. This molten nature of the bodies would cause most of the heavier material to congeal towards the center of the mass. But the heavy cores of the bodies would also tend to attract each other. If you look at the moon, you will notice discoloration of the heavier core of the moon where it surfaces. You see the man's face in the moon, caused by the molten magnet from the core, which is darker than the dust on the surface. Coming to the surface after the Theia Impact on the dark side of the moon, the side always facing away, there is no molten material from the core surface. This is not the dark side, but is light in color. So Kook, says Selene, your father, Darksider, could be considered Lightsider from another point of view. Search your feeling, Kook. No, it cannot be true. LOL. This seeking of the cores in their orbit around each other caused only one face of the moon to show itself to the Earth. Also, it can be reasoned that the Earth's spin would be reduced because of this pairing of the moon and the Earth. For just as a skater spins faster when the arms are close to the body and slower as the limbs are extended, the moon orbiting the Earth would be like extending the arms of the skater, slowing the spin of the Earth. Later, the molten surface of the Earth cooled enough to form a crust, and oceans would expose the first supercontinent. Would the atmosphere be oceans in the sky? What dynamic weather would occur as the oceans of water oscillated between the surface and the atmosphere? There would be no barriers for the water because it would not settle into the basins of the Earth until it cooled enough. What of the original tectonic plate movement? How many were there and how did they move? Can you imagine this time and the forces at work? Once the oceans and land finally established themselves, the Earth's temperatures came into a range for more life. Was the Earth reseeded with proto-life that it sent up into space during the Theia Impact? Can you use your imagination to stimulate an astral projection of yourself over the surface and observe this world? The moon was now protecting the Earth from foreign space deep rays and helping to generate an extra strong magnetic field to protect life and create heat in the Earth's core. The Earth's core is an amazing thing that even with all the advanced science we now have, there are still many questions to be asked and answered. The Theia Impact sent deep rays into elliptical orbits, which are now asteroids and comets, which could have remnants of early proto-life from the primordial Earth. Thinking about the collision, one could make some assumptions of the size of the two planets and their orbital paths, then forming some computer models and possibly make better determinations of when the event happened and how. The Theia Impact has caused me to consider the forming of the asteroid belt. The asteroid belt formed from the primordial solar nebula as a group of planetesimals. Planetesimals are smaller precursors of protoplanets. Jupiter creates gravitational perturbations which cause the protoplanets to orbit erratically, and so they are forever smashing each other just that they cannot accrete into a planet. Asteroid orbits continue to be appreciably perturbed whenever their period of revolution about the Sun forms an orbital resonance with Jupiter. At these orbital distances, a Kirkwood gap occurs as they are swept into other orbits. The gaps were first noticed in 1866 by Daniel Kirkwood, who also currently explained the origin in the orbital resonance with Jupiter while he was a professor at Jefferson College in Canonsburg, Pennsylvania. Some think that most of the mass of the asteroid belt has been lost, though some others say that we can't see all the crap in the field. Many fragments, though, have collided with planets as they meander through the solar system. They could be billions of pieces orbiting out there, many just whipping by our planet at high velocity. Though some understand that 99.9% of the asteroid belt's original mass was lost in the first 100 million years of the solar system's history. With all the collisions going on, the Earth is fortunate to have such a large sentry as its moon to protect it. For whatever reason, the orbits of the planets formed where they formed. But what created these orbits of these resonances? Just as there are resonances for the Kirkwood gaps, so too there must be resonance for the planetary orbits around the Sun. There must be some assumptions that could be made that would give an idea of why these orbits and not others. Surely there are some physics equations that can be created by astrophysicists which could be used to describe these physical properties. The amount and type of material that created our Sun should determine the planets and the orbits of all solar systems. Could we develop equations to calculate planets and the orbits around distant stars just by figuring the composition of the size of the star using its light? Or is this stretching the possibilities too far? Our solar system has resonances that create our planets to form at intervals which create the majesty of our own unique system. Can we figure out what factors in physics would predict planetary orbits in other solar systems by just considering the light of the Sun? Has anyone figured this out? Has anyone considered why planets have orbital paths they do and not others? As far as I know, there is no one that can predict planets just by calculating the mass and composition of a star. But it has only been deduced that the solar system is the age that it is. It is not surprising, since so little is known, for the periodic table, when considered, predicted that there were elements that were not known that could be discovered. The faith of science is about seeing the patterns in the evidence to foresee the unknown. There must be assumptions to create formulas in understanding other star systems in greater detail. We can use the evidence to see the unseen. For is it not the assumptions of science that the universe has order and can be predicted because it can be rationally understood? As we understand more, our personal reality transforms, and our finite, limited perspective is expanded to conceive the universe as something more than we did before. Even our understanding of reality can become more expansive, so too it can shrink and shrivel if we hide in a cocoon of our own lonely thoughts. For just as our sidewalk reality becomes more comprehensive as we take on the effort of knowing other perspectives, so too it can shrink if we are coerced to only consider one perspective. For realize that the universe not too long ago was considered by all to be very much smaller than it is now. Our perspectives in the West and in science has transformed our minds by the quest to ask questions, to say things from a new point, so we can conceive a new sidewalk reality. But the true reality neither shrinks or expands. It is only our perspective of reality that does. The true reality can be a frightening thing. It has so many unknowns. It can make us feel so insecure as we begin to see the vastness of it. To have security, many people cling to their finite perspectives and claim them as absolutes. To comfort themselves, many people cling to the material around them to keep their hold on reality. How can we feel secure when so much of our future is unknown? Is our cry to the true reality? Does it answer us, or are we alone? Why are we alone? How did we get here? Let us continue on a narrative that might lead us to some security that we belong, that describes and postulates some of how, but still never gives a why or for who. That concludes the Theia Impact. The next part is panspermia.